Okay, he will ask one and then I will ask one and you can answer both.
No, I will answer his, then I will answer yours.
So, following on from the previous question, if he is human, and previously you said that he basically represents God, he's an image of God.
Yeah.
So if he is human,
Yes.
so that means he eats, he drinks.
Yes.
So if he is a representation of God the Father, that means
Yep.
that basically God the Father also eats, drinks, and other things that are with him. Yes.
Okay, so let me reply to that. So the true, when we say that Christ represents God the Father to us, the exact image of God the Father, this is not a denial of his humanity. His humanity needs to sleep, his humanity needs to eat, his humanity needs to go to the toilet. When he's representing the Father to us, he's representing the Father in his character, his moral actions, all of these things. We're not saying that God the Father goes to the toilet. We're not saying that God the Father sleeps. We're not saying that God the Father, or even God the Son in his divinity, right? No, don't be rude. Don't be rude. Unfortunately, we always get these Muslims who think that they own the park and can behave like a jackass. No, I'm having a conversation. Stop being rude. Now, the point is, if I've got this Quran in my bag and I burn it, have I burnt the word of Allah? No, of course I've not. You don't believe that I can destroy the Quran, destroy the word of Allah by destroying the Quran. But if I spit on the Quran in front of you, you're going to get offended. Why? Because that is the word of Allah. So in other words, things can happen to the material word of Allah that offends you, that gets you angry, that's disrespectful, but you would never say that I've managed to do the same to the attribute of Allah. And in like manner, Christ can go to the toilet, sleep and eat, but that doesn't mean there's any deficiency in his divinity. His turn.
When a Muslim asks, if Jesus represents the Father, does that mean the Father also eats, sleeps, and prays? The question reveals a misunderstanding. It confuses the unchanging nature of God with kenosis, the voluntary self-emptying of the eternal Word when he took on human flesh. In the Christian faith, God cannot be seen in his essence. The infinite cannot be grasped by the finite. Yet in order for humanity to truly know him, the eternal Word, who has always been in perfect communion with the Father, descended and took on human nature. The Word did not become human in the sense of ceasing to be divine. Rather, he assumed human nature into his divine person. He became truly human without surrendering his divinity. This is the mystery of the Incarnation, not a transformation of God into creation, but the union of creation with the Creator. So when Jesus eats, sleeps, and prays, he does so not as the Father, but as a true man. He is not a mere image or shadow of the Father, but the one who brings the Father's presence into the world in fullness. In him, the divine and the human are perfectly united, without confusion, without separation, without change, and without division. The prayers of Jesus to the Father are not signs of inferiority or essential separation, but the perfect expression of the love and obedience of the Son to the Father, a love that has existed eternally within the mystery of the Trinity. When Jesus prays, it is not because he lacks knowledge or power, but because he fully lives out the human condition in order to heal and elevate it through perfect obedience. So when Jesus says, "Whoever has seen me has seen the Father," he is not saying the Father performs the same physical acts. Rather, in Jesus' love, mercy, wisdom, and power, we behold the radiant light of the Father shining through his face. He is the living icon of the invisible God. The Father does not eat or sleep, for the Father is spirit. Yet through the body of Jesus, the invisible mystery is made visible, not because the divine essence changed, but because divine love humbled itself to be accessible to finite humanity. Questions like these only make sense if someone believes that God must be limited by creation in order to be known. But the Christian faith teaches something far deeper. God remains both beyond creation and yet present within it, not because creation rose up to reach him, but because he, in mercy, came down to us, not just to show his power, but to give himself in the form of a servant. This is why such questions can never penetrate the depth of Christian faith. They speak from the flesh, but we answer from the Spirit.
So just one thing, you said,
I lost the page.
Okay, thank you very much. It's all right, bro. Thank you.
just,
I appreciate
just
it.
to repeat what you said, and that's what I'm understanding. So you just said that Christ, or the words of Christ, are the exact, or Christ
They are the words of the Father.
Are the Father or Father.
Yeah.
So we can both agree that Christ was the messenger of Father.
Yes,
So we do agree on.
we agree on that.
Yeah, so that was my initial point. That's where we go different ways. Because we believe in Christ, we agree with him, but you believe him as a God and as a messenger apparently at the same time. But
Yeah.
we believe in him just as a messenger, like we believe in Muhammad as the messenger.
Let me reply to that. Because if Jesus really is God, right, do a thought experiment with me. If our claim about Jesus is true, isn't incumbent upon you to worship him? Yeah, exactly. So, no, hold on one second. So this difference is really important. It's not to be diminished. If Jesus really is God, then you should bow down in worship to him. If Jesus is not God, I am a blasphemer against God, right? So this is not some little thing. And the fact of the matter is, Jesus does claim to be God. We have his words where he says that. And I'll prove it to you. According to the Quran, who is the first and the last? Allah. According to the Bible, do you know Jesus is the first and the last?
Did Jesus himself say that?
Yes, he does.
Which was,
I can show you. Yeah, I'll show you.
Research that.
Yeah, I'll show you. Right? Now, my point to you is that here we have this divine title that Jesus is using. Why does Muhammad steal Jesus' divine titles and apply them to Allah? Because this book that I'm about to read from you came long before the Quran. Long before the Quran. So let's have a look. This is Jesus speaking. Behold, I am coming quickly, and my reward is with me, to render to every man according to what he has done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Who can come before the first? Who can come after the last?
It also can mean
Go on.
he's the first and the last in terms of command from the God. It doesn't say he's the God.
No, hold on one second. You see, you're doing that cherry picking thing that all Muslims do. Who's the beginning? Who's the end? According to the Quran, who's the beginning and the end?
Now,
Allah.
okay.
So Jesus is calling himself God. Now this book came before your Quran. So I now ask you, why did Muhammad steal the divine titles of Jesus and give them to Allah?
Okay, now my question is.
No, I want you to answer my question. I've answered yours.
Yeah, okay, it's kind of an answer to it, but in form of question, all right?
All right, go on then.
So, how can you say this book is more authentic than the Quran? Because it's before, so there's a higher chance of this being slightly changed than the Quran.
Okay.
Can you agree with that?
Let me reply to that, right? Just so we don't get stuck on this point,
Yeah.
right? I am going to admit to you, and admit to the argument, that my New Testament, the words of that New Testament have been slightly changed. So hopefully now we can get past that point. So I've just admitted it. But the question is, has it been changed so much that the message has been lost? Because if I change a pronoun here and a word over there, anyone with a brain can still learn the message. Agreed? Am I being fair? If you wrote an essay and someone came along and changed maybe 5 words in a 3,000 word essay, well, let me finish, and changed like the odd pronoun, name for a pronoun, or changed one adjective for a different adjective, right? Or even changed like an active voice to a passive voice, or even a verb, changed a single verb in a particular phrase. And I'm now going to see how honest you are. Would you agree that someone coming to read that essay would still learn the point that you're making?
If it was a human who wrote it, definitely yes. But if
Thank you.
If it is God, then no.
Right, but here's the problem. Right, let me reply to that because no. I'm replying to your point. Every single text on earth and every single Quran on earth has been written by a human being. All of them.
When a Muslim rejects the divinity of Jesus by saying, the book of Revelation is older than the Quran, so there's a higher chance it's been changed, that statement isn't really an argument. It's an assumption, and it's not based on sound historical methodology or a consistent theology of divine revelation. It only makes sense if someone assumes that the older a book is, the more likely it is to be corrupted. But if you follow that logic all the way through, it doesn't just raise questions about the Bible, it actually turns back on the Quran itself. Why? because the Quran repeatedly affirms that the Torah and the Gospel were revelations that came directly from God. If the Torah and Gospel were already corrupted, then how could God rebuke people for not following them? That's not divine justice, that's moral absurdity. Beyond that, authenticity is not determined by age alone. There is no historical principle that says older means less reliable. What proves the reliability of a text is manuscript evidence, consistency over time, and transparency in transmission. And on those grounds, the New Testament, especially the book of Revelation, has far stronger manuscript support than the Quran. Revelation exists in manuscripts from the 3rd and 4th centuries, like Codex Alexandrinus, and it was quoted by early church fathers as early as the 2nd century. The Quran, on the other hand, has no complete manuscripts from the lifetime of Muhammad. Even the Birmingham fragment, which is often cited as the oldest, doesn't contain a full chapter and doesn't match the standard Quran exactly. And that's not even addressing the many qira'at, variant readings, that Muslims themselves still debate today. But more importantly, the book of Revelation is not just an apocalyptic text. It makes a theologically profound claim that Jesus is the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. This is the same declaration made by God himself in the book of Isaiah. So when Jesus says, "I am the Alpha and the Omega," he is speaking with the voice of Yahweh. This is not poetry, it's a direct and existential claim to divine identity. To reject the book of Revelation simply because it predates the Quran, while ignoring its historical and theological foundation, reveals that the objection is not rooted in a true search for truth, but in an inward resistance to who Jesus truly is. So when we respond, we don't answer from human fear that old texts are unreliable. We answer from the conviction that the true and living God is able to preserve his revelation and has made himself fully known in the person of Christ. Not because man climbed up to reach him, but because God came down, humbling himself in the form of a servant.